In the communications literature and psychology of media literature, they make a distinction between enjoyment and appreciation. And enjoyment is hedonic. And
would you say like hedonic is like felt in the body?
It's very basic in that sense.
I'm trying to give people like an elementary
understanding.
Like, what is hedonic?
It's probably something at a base material level, something like opioids and endocannabinoids.
Yeah, right. Okay.
These are pleasure centers of the brain, and those are the neurotransmitters that are.
It's like that feeling you get if you drink a couple beers and you're like, ah.
Yeah, but it's really it's junk food. It's pure junk food. It's just hitting that. It's not even dopaminergic because dopamine is forward focused.
There's really no pursuit in hedonic pleasure.
There's no pursuit.
It's like you just want to sit in your couch and vegetate or something.
It's not wanting, which is driving you forward like dopamine is. It's just pure nom.
So what we were talking about is kind of like this idea of junk content we were talking about, and how certain films, we were using Avatar as our example, as like when you watch it, you can't even really cite anything about what it made you feel. It's just a thing.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because you can, to elucidate this, if the new Avatar movies, these James Cameron blue aliens.
Yeah, not to be confused with the other Avatar.
Hedonic or enjoyable.
Yes.
In the psych tech or psych lingo. Then Avatar The Last Airbender is appreciative. It's appreciation. It's eudaimonic. It's meaningful. It's not, ooh, yum, 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 junk food. You'll struggle with it more.
It takes time to process it. Basically.
And it has more meaning. It's more meaningful.
Interesting.
And so that you could imagine is operating on something of a dopaminergic substrate.
Yeah. It kind of makes sense why certain stories, like, even though it might be a hit at like a intellectual level, it doesn't cross over to until eventually it might get a cult following, right? Like you hear about that all the time in at least film, more often or not, where it's like, it starts out with like, kind of like it, and maybe even not liked by critics, like people just don't understand it. And then it takes time for people to really sit with it and process what it's getting at.
You're probably realizing that it's taking you somewhere you want to go. It's facilitating your forward movement.
Like it's unlocking things, like you're already on a trajectory and it's just a vehicle for which you can process.
Yeah, it's helping you get there.
Totally see that.
You see what I mean? Right. So people, it's like you driving some kind of insight. It's helping you see better into where you're heading, what this objective is, how to get there, where you are in relationship to it, all these things. You might imagine that the cult following kind of films are films that are very, very good at elucidating the purpose that people hold.
Ah, okay.
So it's a kind of specialized film. And so most people are going to watch it and go, what
the bounce off of it?
And be like, I mean, maybe it's good, whatever. I like the, CG or something. Yeah. And they leave it alone and it doesn't resonate with them. But there's some subset of people for whom it resonates deeply because it's connecting on a pretty full level.
Whatever problems they're trying to address at that current moment. Because it's the other thing I've thought about too, is that sometimes some stories, either film or books or pick whatever, will resonate differently at different points of your life, or even you'll totally bounce off of it at different points of your life because you're just not at that point to see it that way.
Yeah, that's like the flow state.
Yes.
So the flow state it's kind of like the Goldilocks zone between getting so little valuable information that you're bored.
Yes.
And getting so much information that you're overwhelmed or anxious.
Right, so you can't process it anymore.
Acting in the flow state comes about, and then you're having incoming novel information, or you're approaching your goal at a rate that you can actually comprehend.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Is a way of thinking about it. Where things like they'll talk about also in the same kind of communications literature, they'll talk about immersion or transportation, and that flow, immersion, transportation were kind of initially thought of as the same thing. But they can get differentiated in that it seems more like this immersion is non-action. So you get immersed in a film because you're not doing
right. You're just a participant, like watching it.
You go into a flow state when playing a video game.
Because you become the next, like you're acting out in the world.
You're in the world.
To use a Petersonian type.
Well, I mean, it's a digital world,
right?
But you get the same kind of thing. And
oh, that's fascinating. No wonder video games kind of, because I've thought about video games, and this is a total tangent, but I've thought about like why video games resonate so much, because it's really kind of like the holy grail of like an interactive experience, because it literally puts you in the driver's seat as a participant in the story that it's trying to elaborate.
Okay.
Yes, we see that a
Right,
lot with these
where-
live service games where it's just trying
Just-
to parasitize your
Every
work.
mobile game.
Yeah,
Every mobile game is just hooking into your dopamine receptors and playing it on repeat. And
Yeah.
look, bells and whistles, and isn't that cool?
it's just
And
trying to get. I mean, it's really just a gambling machine.
it's
is
sort
what
of
it comes down to,
it kind of degrades into hedonic.
because it learns how to push all the right buttons just to get you to keep, you know, gluing your eyes to that thing, like watching number go up or whatever. Like
Yeah,
playing those games of just there's actually a book on this called the Scarcity loop, and that's what it parasitizes an old behavioral cycle of basically our evolution is all about survival, right? And so we live in a scarce world. And so the example the author uses, the book is by Michael Easter for those who are interested. And basically the idea is like, say you have a berry bush, right? But that berry bush, it doesn't have infinite berries on it. There's going to be a point in diminishing returns where you're wasting your time picking every berry off of the bush right in front of you, when you can look over and there's probably another bush with way more berries that you can go start picking on.
Yeah.
So the scarcity loop is that as you forage or hunt for things, is that your body is naturally going to gravitate and find that natural diminishing return and then look for the next thing. But the problem is this modern technology continually hijacks that loop. The example he uses is gambling machines, where basically there's an infinite number of scarcity, but if you just hit that button one more time, there might be all the bells and whistles go off and you win.
just because there's eye tracking on slot machines.
I can only imagine
Yeah.
what they're working with now with machine learning.
I'm sure it's
It's
already
nightmare fuel.
They'll keep you glued to that thing, but you'll be just bleeding money.
Well, that's where a lot of this stuff is going, is that they basically, we've talked about this before, but they integrated a lot of this stuff into the apps to keep people engaged.
So there's something we're noting there. That what's happening with the berry bush, the second berry bush that now has a whole lot more berries reward, is novelty.
Yes.
Is it novelty sort of built into this, and that you see something
it's inherent
new?
novelty. I didn't even think
Right.
about that.
It's connected to this, that you're seeing something new, and it's result that novel bush has more reward in some
Right.
sense.
Inherent direction in the real world.
Yeah, and so people will just be novelty.
Yeah.
seeking.
One
And
of
then
my,
it
like-
clips into that novelty.
Actually, one of my theories about this is that ADHD is actually a biological hardwire, that we're maladaptive in this world.
But yeah.
Because there's a point where like having attention deficit, as we codify it, is like a survival instinct in the natural world. Because if you just get so hyper focused into the thing in front of you, whatever it is that you're doing, that leaves you wide open to being murdered or killed or whatever by the world that's around you. So like if you aren't attentive to the world, you're a scapegoat. Yeah. So like part of me thinks that the modern world is so rigid that having a moving focus, scanning the horizon, it looks maladaptive, but it's actually just biological hardwiring.
Yeah, it would be maladaptive, like in a literal sense, in that it is biological hardware that no longer fits to the environment.
Correct.
And so it was once adapted, it is now poorly
mapped.
adapted.
So, but I think part of it is that we're looking at something as like a diagnosis, when it's just like, oh, this is like a set point, and it's just learning how to cope with the set point and like training ourselves to like be aware of it, kind of like meditative practices.
Well, there's something really interesting about, I don't know if we're keep going on this.
I know.
But we're sort of elaborating on the nature of appreciation. Wholeness is a forward-looking, even novelty-oriented system. And that in the world, even when you're getting out of a film, is that it's all moving you towards a long-term goal. And that by talking about even addiction, even the way that video games can hijack that, or what the evolutionary basis is, it gives you a better sense of what it is that makes the film meaningful, because you fleshed out understanding of that. And so that's part of what we're doing to get meta. But is that one of the features of ADHD is that it's coupled with periods of extreme focus on a narrow thing. So there's a stretch goal. There's something that's way out in the distance that you're locked into and you won't let go of. And that strikes me as like right out of a hunting mechanism.
Totally.
You're in the savannah and you see the animal and you clipped it and it's bleeding and now you're tracking it for 6 hours and you're thinking about nothing else.
Just so super.
Got it. Achieved. Mission accomplished. And that's super adaptive again in the past. And now we're in an extremely chaotic, kind of non-linear, broken up, fractured attention scape.
And then, like, there's so many parallels that you can take. Like, oh, there's an interesting over there, or there, or there, there, right? Like, so many, like,
without any principle.
No, there's no way to overlay it except, I guess, the overlay is you get to choose. And to use that as a jumping off point, we're going to be talking about the film Everything Everywhere All at Once.
If we could talk, it leads into why you might appreciate the film.
Yes. Because I think on the surface of that film, like if you just take kind of like the hedonic side of that film, it looks like an action, comedy, sci-fi, some multiverse stuff, which was kind of popular.
And especially before it, like okay, so this is, let's linger on the multiverse for a second.
It.
Okay. So what's a multiverse, right? It's many universes that are all disconnected from each other.
Yeah, parallel realities potentially.
Right, which don't interact. Except under like special circumstances for the sake of the plot. One character or many will flip through them. If you have multiverses, it renders everything meaningless. Okay, so any action that could be taken, Rick and Morty is very good at it, showing this, is that it's like, oh no, everybody in the family is dead. Guess we'll just go to another universe. Hey, look, new family, cool, nothing matters. They're all the same, and what's the difference anyway? This kind of thing that was in Rick and Morty, that was in the Marvel universe, that was in Everything Everywhere all at Once, was really prevalent at that time, and I think it's dying out.
I think, honestly, this is the last movie that kind of put its stamp on it and said, we don't need to do that one anymore. Like, everyone's kind of got sick of it, especially because I think the multiverse trope is a lazy writing tool for people who are not sophisticated writers.
There's definitely that. I think that the reason something like that emerged and resonate with people is because it corresponded to their experience.
Yes.
Think about Instagram. What you have in Instagram is a series of reels, and you're hopping from one reel to the next. And in a reel in itself can be a full storyline. It doesn't have to last very long, but it's a universe in itself. And it has no connection whatsoever to the next thing or the thing that came before it, besides a kind of base hedonism that it can hook into. And so you're flipping through different universes constantly, and your work life feels disconnected from your home life. All of these different things.
Yeah, it's like multiple selves, basically.
Here's the world fractures even more. I can go to the gym and be listening to a podcast and doing my own thing. Somebody else can be listening to something so completely different. We're in different universes. We're not attaining to the same thing.
But you're sharing the same physical space.
Yeah, modern art does this. This is why modern art sucks ass. It puts all the onus on you for meaning making.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how it does it. It abstracts out so much, and then it tells you, this is kind of, I guess, postmodern art, is like, here's this bulbous nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, isn't that crazy? Don't you see how if I approach that art like a curator or somebody who's really interested in it, and I'm trying to see whatever it is that I see in the art, there's nothing there. It's just a blank canvas for me to project my own psychology onto. Yeah. The person next to me is going to be like, here's what I see. Isn't this interesting? And they're going to say their whole projection. And then I'm going to be like, I don't see that. And they'll be like, well, I don't see what you see.
Right. Viral.
That's the end.
There's nothing to talk about.
There's nowhere else to go with that. You're both of your projections are valid. Right. Congratulations. There's nothing to talk about. In old art where there was a meaning in the art. Like the artist is trying to communicate something to you. Mm-hmm. Like like words have meaning, and that you're able to pick up on the words I'm using and understand what I'm saying, that you're getting it.
Yeah.
Or the art itself is trying to express something and trying to get you to get it. It can't do it perfectly. Words can't do it perfectly. But there's a meaning trying to be conveyed by the art as a representation. Okay, so now bring two people to go look at that piece of artwork. So we're both looking at the same thing. So we're in the same universe, and we can communicate about what we're seeing. That we could derive from that piece of art isn't infinite. It's constrained by the structure of the art itself. And so there's a limitation to the number of interpretations that we can have of the art. And that's a feature of the artwork itself. I see this, but I'm looking at this, I'll be like, why? And then I'm looking at this, the way that this woman is,
Yeah,
like,
some
her
detail.
hand, if her hand isn't on the back of another character like this, like she's pushing him away, rather she has her hand open as the back, like she's gracefully encouraging him. And then you can say, oh, I see it. I see the difference there.
Right.
And we can actually be brought into the same
It's a
world.
conversation where it's a dialogue.
The center of attention that draws us into each other. It unifies us.
I think now
Postmodern art is the opposite. It's a dividing artwork. It says you and the person next to you have nothing in common. You can't communicate. Nothing means anything. Go home.
I think you're nailing why the film Everything All at Once resonates, because it kind of positions itself as a postmodern piece for a while. And then right at the point where you think it's going to go the realistic route, into the rug pull, it doesn't do that. It actually tries to pull you in and say, no, we can actually get through the chaos of this modern world where there's chaos everywhere. Right. I think this is like a good foreshadowing.
Yeah, you're nailing it. So it's worth talking about the film from that perspective, right?
Because that's the central meaning of it all, I think.
Was because it corresponded to their experience of their lives fractured into many different universes, all disconnected from one another.
Can I give an example? I remember when we heard this theory before, like multiverse, I was weird nerdy kid who thought about quantum physics and stuff like that, where you could have splits, like the parallel idea where you can have two atoms in different positions but connected. If you play that out from an individual standpoint, where you can think about an experience, right? And every experience you say yes or no to is a split in your reality. There's this point where it's like, oh, did you ask that girl yes or no? And then split. Now there's a different reality. There's one path where you went this way, or it's like, oh, did you play that sport? Yes or no? Split. And you just keep playing this forking reality that infinitum. There's all these roads that you could go down in this particular version of me, right? There's a version of me that never started a podcast. And who, I don't even know who that guy is, but here we go. I know, right? But you can play this out, right? There's a version of me who never started lifting. And so you just keep thinking about these different decisions, and I call them inflection points, right? There's inflection points in every one of our lives that yes to this thing or said no to this thing. And every one of those is a doorway you either opened or closed. And I think that's what like the idea of the multiverse comes from, because now you play that out, everyone is playing that game.
Yeah.
You just see like, okay, how could the world be so different? I think it's interesting as someone you're growing up to think about that, because you're trying on a bunch of personalities. Like, who could you be, right? It's a way of figuring out who you are in this world, and what attributes or interests that you like to follow. At least that's the adolescent version of this. And we're going to get into the downstream effects of how to contend with the infinite reality or potential infinite reality.
And there's the point in that's interesting that came to mind when you were talking about this, was the difference between a symbol and a sign. That a sign is one for one. A stop sign has one meaning. A symbol has many meanings, and they're actually all valid. That the symbol is a meaning that all of these different sub meanings participate in some sense. And so you can look at a multiverse as a symbol, and that one symbol could be corresponding to the fractured attentionscape of people in the modern world. And another symbol is one of potential, of thinking about the world as many different paths, and the way that those all fracturing can send you into different universes. And so and they're both real, like they're both valid interpretations of that thing, but there's multiple interpretations embedded in this.
Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the things that's interesting about the way Everything All at Once does their story, and the way they deal with the multiverses, in the sense that in Everything Everywhere All at Once, they don't play that game. They just take all of them as equally valid across the board. And it's not that this one is better than that one. They just use it as a vehicle so that the characters can see themselves like, oh, what if I did this a different way? Right. And you get to see how that affects the character, and thinking about, oh, the things that they think are either mistakes or question or, oh, what if I did that? Like my life would be, that revisionist history is to this instead of that.
Yes. So now I'll give you a psychological interpretation of that, which is that you have your life and you have all these different paths you could have gone down or that you could go down. And what your world isn't the material facts of the world, but where you put your attention. Your attention is your world. And so she's, in some sense, if I'm reading this like psychoanalytically, I'm looking at the main character, Evelyn, and I'm like, oh, your world isn't fractured by social media or something. Your world is fractured by regrets and all the different things that you wish that you could have done, looking past into the past, thinking about the possibilities. And your flickering between universes is actually the flickering between all of these potentials that you are stuck attending to instead of noticing the present.
Yeah. And actually, I didn't pick this up the first few times I've seen this film. I actually noticed it yesterday as I was watching. And what was interesting is I wasn't really watching it like the images. I was listening to the dialogue more. And one of the things that I caught is that they show you the fractured nature of her personality by going to the tax audit. And she's like, wait, what are all these receipts? Like, you're a teacher, you just have 100 different things. I'm over exaggerating, but she's basically fragmented herself in all these different ways because she used it as cover because she feels stressed out about covering the bills or whatever as owning a laundromat. In reality, it's her discontentment with the way her life has gone that causes her to have this anxious, like frantic bounce from A, bounce from B, like not really be focused. And then even like the way she interacts with her daughter, like she has her over with her girlfriend and she tries this. I think they did the scene really well where she's going to say something nice, or at least you kind of feel it. And then she says, oh, you're getting fat. You should really take care of yourself more, which everybody knows that kind of feeling where, you wish they would say the right thing, but it's like they just can't bring themselves to do it. And part of it's their own upbringing that gets in the way. Part of it's they just don't know how to even maybe connect emotionally at that level because they're afraid of like what might happen from whatever that is. And I think one of the things that is interesting, I don't know where I heard this quote, but it's like the idea is when you're super specific, right? Because this is like one family and their specific dynamics within the husband, wife, and the daughter, and then her dad. And it feels so specific. How could this resonate? But I think in that level of granularity, people can resonate and like overlay the different aspects of their own lives to the story and see themselves kind of in this multiversal sense, right? Like we can play the game with the characters and say, okay, how does this like resonate with my own life? It might not be one for one, but we all have stories, relatives, friends, whatever, where you go, oh yeah, I get that. I've heard that, or I felt that, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you have all these different little things that interplay with each other that if you tried to be too broad, it just get mushy.
Okay, so now I'm going to do a Darwinian kind of perspective on this, and that you have each individual in a postmodern view is their own universe that don't correspond to one another. But what you're noticing when you get really specific to an individual's case, that people will resonate with it. So the general audience, there's something is resonating with something very specific that should be unique to that one universe. But that's because there are patterns from a single universe that are common across all the universes, because there's something common across all the universes. And the thing that's common across all those universes is humanity. It's that you're a human being and you have a nature.
I wanted to
and
use
that
an engineering
nature,
common substrate.
there's a common substrate. The pattern rests on a common substrate. What you're seeing is something emergent out of the humanity that's present across all these different universes. And the postmodernists get that totally wrong. They don't realize that all knowledge is embodied, that we're embodied creatures, and that because we're the same species, there's similarities in all bodies. There's a core, there's a center, even though there's variety on the edges. You can have differences on one level between people. You have something that's common that actually makes them the same species. You're not a goat. You're not a giraffe. You're not.
It's funny why you would say that, like why that would be funny is because it's duh. Like, it's a duh thing, but it's funny because
You have to
stupid.
say it.
Right. Well, and that's kind of one of the things that caught me again with this film is that there's this level of absurdism that reminds you a lot like how you deal with things. Like, you can go from super serious scientific to
ridiculous.
totally absurd in like 0.1 seconds. And this film plays with that. And I think because of there is a certain level of absurdism in our modern world because of how, like what you were describing with Instagram, where you can go from one reel to another and it's like whiplash.
You can go from something that's wholesome, like little kitties, to like a murder.
I think this film does absurdism, like with the hot dog fingers and some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
But once you get past the absurd, there's a point to it. It's like a playfulness to like not take life so seriously. Like, we can play with our lives in the sense that you get to be who you want. You don't have to let reality crush you down and pulverize you into this shape that it wants you to be, which is soulless and just go through the motions of life. You can decide, I guess, how you want to present to the world. Your point is the family is like you
In the film.
Yes.
It's actually a little bit, it's even deeper. You know, I went and I'll get to it. There's so much we have to flesh out before we can arrive at where the center of this thing
we
is.
need to talk about Waymond. Because he's the emotional center of the film. Point that I really want to talk about.
He's you know what he is? It's like Evelyn is torn between all the purposes and the annihilation of any purpose.
That's why she's the main character, because she's drawn
in both directions. If purpose is symbolically masculine, so this is getting in, you would expect the arbinger of purpose to be male.
Which makes even more sense in the context of the film, because he becomes like the Merlin.
Yes, that's right.
Where he, like the other Alpha Waymond, shows up and like is the guide for her to embrace this like chaotic, like different.
He's trying to draw her right to something else. And in some sense, he's trying to even pull her out of her fascination with or enchantment by all of the different possibilities of this multiverse.
Hey, there's one thing that way.
Which is part of why it's symbolically masculine. Because men are objective oriented. One thing, they're a line. He's trying to close her attention down to one focus. Not all the different possibilities. Fix your eyes on one thing, get there. And that's his role. The whole thing is him trying to like snap her back to reality and get her to take action. The daughter, Joy.
Right, she's the opposite side of it.
She's the opposite. She's a personification of the ego under the principality of the Ouroboros. Which would kill me.
It sounds so intense.
It's okay. So I'm writing a companion article for this. It focuses on this piece.
Okay.
So the modern worldview is materialistic.
Yes.
It thinks that the only thing that's real is matter. Like fundamentally, it's the substance that
the physical world.
Science is the best means of investigating that. We're going to discover foundational or fundamental reality, what's really real and not just in our own heads in some sense. And cool. That's great. But you play that out and you end up fracturing the world down into an infinite number of facts. It's like, okay, I can't in a very Cartesian fashion trust my feelings, or even what I'm seeing with my own eyes. All I can trust is what I can investigate, what this fundamental substance is. So in some sense, feeling isn't real. What I'm even seeing isn't real, but the neurons are real.
Right.
But the neurons, it's like, which neuron? There's a trillion neurons. Okay, so if I want to make a statement of fact, something that's fundamentally true, so I know that I'm on solid ground, I have to almost relate the activation levels of every neuron in my entire brain if I want to say something about what I'm feeling. That it's not just that activation level of every single neuron, it's the way that those activation levels relate to each other. All those neurons relate to one another. It's a nearly effectively infinite number of neurons. and an infinite number of ways in which they can interact with each other. And then they change. Both of those aspects change over time. So if I'm just trying to say, like, I feel bad, what I have to do in a base materialist sense is relay to you all of that information, which is literally
I was
impossible.
going to say, this sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It is impossible. You can't do it. And we're in this place where everybody's acting like they can't trust what they're seeing with their own eyes. They can only trust the facts.
Right, as they see it.
You have to have some study to back up everything.
Right.
But the study's always behind. And we've already talked about this problem of this infinitely expanding number of facts that you would have to fall back on in order to say anything with any truth value.
Right.
Okay, so imagine that psychologically. It's fracturing.
Right.
You're fracturing everything up.
And they actually do that really good in the film, where they show like the overlay of Evelyn's face as she's like tapping into her different universes' skills. And then it's like, as she tries to do it more and more, like he fractures you like a pane of glass, fracturing. And I think to contrast this, I think what you're actually highlighting is the feeling that the daughter has. Because if you look at it in like a microcosmic way, where the daughter has fallen into this void, like nihilistic worldview that nothing matters, right? And I think she's actually a surrogate for a lot of millennials, which I'm sure I think the Daniels are probably close to our age. Whereas like you feel like this endless possibility because we've grown up alongside the internet. So this ballooning of possible worlds, right? I think influencers in a lot of ways are the reason people like influencers, because they get to try on, live vicariously. It's almost like that hedonistic thing we were talking about, is they get to tag along, be a fly on the wall for these other ways of being, as you would say in a Jungian sense, but with none of the effort needed to actually live that life. So you get to just do that. And so it's really easy to just fall into this trap of like, who am I supposed to be? Because you look around and you have the comparison effect. And I think fundamentally, though, all Joy wants is to be seen by her mother, instead of having her mother who's like totally scatterbrained all the time because she's trying to run a business and do all these other things and feels like she's failing at life, broadly speaking, when in reality, she just wants to connect with her mom.
I almost stopped or went too far ahead when I started talking about materialism, because what organizes the facts is the highest order value. It's a purpose. Because if I'm pursuing something, then what that pursuit affords is irrelevance. So if I'm trying to go to the grocery store, my car is relevant, the conditions of the road are relevant, what time it is, maybe what my grocery list is, what I need in the fridge. If there's a tsunami in Indonesia, couldn't give a fuck.
Right.
Doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant. It has no bearing whatsoever on, as far as I can tell, on me getting to the grocery store to get what I need. It hones the world down. It simplifies the world.
Right.
And that's necessary because you can't relate all the facts. You're fundamentally limited in a fundamentally incomprehensibly complicated universe.
And especially the scale at which everything exists today.
Yes.
Complicated.
So what is making Evelyn's life multi-universal and chaotic is the death of a higher order principle,
right,
or higher order purpose.
She has nothing.
She sees all the things that could have been, all the purposes she could have pursued that would have given her life meaning. Didn't pursue any of them. She has no purpose.
Mm.
She sits around and does laundry. And that means her life is not organized, not ordered. It doesn't make any sense. Chaotic.
And you can see that when she's like trying to look for laundry and she's like, "Where'd you put it?" And Wayman's like, "I put it upstairs because you didn't have any space here." He's like,
everything's chaos.
Yeah.
So there's a question in the movie about purpose and sort of what do you do when your purpose has fallen away, when you don't have one. There's some call to reestablish one, And then there's a call, a kind of death instinct. Joy is very much the ego trying to hold on to all the facts.
It feels like the young person trap. Like, this is someone who's smart, but like doesn't have any wisdom and needs someone to help them like let go of some of the facts so that they can give themselves the space to reach for the purpose, or like to understand that you can't be all things.
Yeah.
You know, like you just have to pick at least one thing, maybe 2 or 3, right? Like there's a limit to how many things you can chase at one time. Like to use a personal is when I was training for a marathon, I had to come to a real, legitimately painful decision that if I really wanted to train for the marathon, I had to cut back on how many podcasts I was able to do, because to train enough to feel like I was prepared to run a marathon meant that I had to give up on another thing I enjoyed to be able to feel prepared. But in a sense that, coming back to the purpose idea, which I think will illustrate in the film, is that I felt that if I threw myself wholeheartedly into running a marathon, I would be able to come back with insights so that when I did podcast more, I would have more interesting things to say because I threw myself at something difficult in life than trying to spread myself thin, trying to do everything all at once. Ironically.
Yes. So in some sense, you didn't pick 2 things. You picked one thing, and you found that you could serve the one thing by doing another.
Yes.
It's still to the higher order purpose. It's just how you organize priorities.
Yeah, it's how you create the hierarchy.
How you do that, how you get there. It's the path that might have halted. It's not so linear, but it's still the same purpose.
Oh, I guess society makes it feel like you have to do these things simultaneously. Like there's a machinery of life.
The thing that makes you feel like you need to be doing everything all the time, right, is the lack of purpose.
Yeah.
It's that society today has systematically annihilated any sense of
Demands more.
Everything becomes equal.
Yeah.
There's no order prioritization, which is determined by the purpose that you're pursuing. And so you just have infinite number of things you could be doing. There's no way to organize. Everything is equivalent. So why do anything? Why over anything else? The reason you knew to do a marathon in service of the podcast was because you cared about the podcast. The challenge is subordinate to the quality of the podcast. But if you couldn't decide which one was more important, you could just do neither or both. And then you get neither. Because then you'd be trying to podcast and it would be stepping on the toes of the running. And then you'd be like, oh, I should go do some running. And they'd be like, oh, I'm not doing the running. If you go bounce back and forth,
both suffer.
World. It's not ping pong between 2 different things. It's a infinite number of facts that are all competing to organize your behavior. That's the chaos of this multiverse. That's the joy is a representation of. That's what I mean by she's in a principality of the Ouroboros. Everything is flat. Everything is perfectly equal. Nothing has any intrinsic meaning or value or priority
all the time. And that's why the kind of going back to the absurd thing. That's why they visualize it with the everything bagel. You mix everything together.
The everything bagel is sort of the final form of the Ouroboros.
Right.
Like it's the shape. The Ouroboros is, those that don't know, it's an archetype. It's a symbol. It's a snake that bites its own tail. That symbol moves on to meet. It literally is etymologically tied to the infinity sign.
Isn't there a version of this where it is the infinity sign, but it's the snake?
Yes. That's how it evolves. And then
it turns
eventually,
into infinite.
then it becomes just the infinity sign. That thing used to be the infinity sign, used to be a snake.
I didn't know that.
And so that gives you a sense of what this thing is.
Yeah.
It's a symbol ultimately, I believe, of oneness. And oneness is singularity without distinction. The world is all one thing. Just all one. It's all equivalent. It's all equal. That's it. One. So it's kind of deceptively simple. It's also a symbol now of chaos.
I think of void. Like,
Yeah. The reason that it's a symbol of chaos isn't because it's in some sense intrinsically chaos. It's that it's relatively chaotic. Within, without.
It's funny that void, like oneness, would be considered chaotic.
Yes, it's so difficult for. It took me forever to like get it.
Yeah.
But the reason that it's even male, female, all these things are turned into one thing is because you're looking down on it, having already made all the distinctions that history has provided for you. And then you're seeing all the many in the one. And it's
so it looks like chaos, but it really is everything.
It's deceptively simple. One, it's the whole universe, everything that there is, the totality of everything as just one concept without any distinctions. So to be truly Ouroboros would be to not even have names for things. It would just be, that's it. It is good and bad.
It's so hard. As people who are limited and we live in distinctive environments, it seems.
I think it's the first concept in some sense.
Yeah, so
probably not historically. What would really be happening with concepts is something like those features of experience that are most relevant to survival and perpetuation are those that we would develop names for and concepts for first. But when we start doing metaphysics, the first answer that we have, the first concept to answer, where do we all come from? Where does this all come from? Is the Ouroboros. Yeah, whatever this one thing is. It was definitely a deity.
Because like people would ask, where did you come from?
Quetzalcoatl is an example of this deity. The term Quetzalcoatl means literally winged serpent, but it also means wise man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so their like story of the founding myth, I think this is the Aztecs, is that there's a wise man who comes and gives knowledge to them and develops civilization. So civilization comes from some base state, preconceptual base state, where any concepts have been derived from experience. And the first big concept.
It's like an enlightenment. Yeah.
Yes, it is an enlightenment.
Yes, you call it.
The snake feeds Adam and Eve knowledge of good and evil.
Oh my God, it's the same story from the Bible.
Thing. Yes, it's telling the same story. I think that it was probably that the snake was the first deity kind of for humanity, and that it was a recognition on a conceptual level of realities being one total thing. And then as you move up, that affords, it's complicated because it's both a concept of reality and it's a highest value, something you aspire to. And in pursuing and understanding and getting closer and closer to this, you start to differentiate the concept and move up the ladder. You can't see what the next rung is until you're sort of close.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like get to Ouroboros and then you're like, oh, there's the great mother and there's the great father. And the world starts to split apart into many different aspects. And you come to understand the world actually fractures and you have many gods.
Right.
But the Ouroboros it looks chaotic because we have the concepts that the Ouroboros is split up into.
Right. It's weird. It's like we're falling back onto this old thing that we forgot how to contend with because we've been circling this idea, this concept in different ways with all the last podcasts, but we've taken that higher order thing that was the organizing principle that allowed us to differentiate. And now we're falling back to this older model.
Yep.
But because we take the presuppositions of the organizing principles, it makes it like we're using the wrong lens in which to make sense of the world.
Yeah. I think that we're still holding on to all of the differentiations that were made from the era that's already dead and using them to make sense of this era that's coming up. And this era that's coming up doesn't distinguish in the same way. And so we're like, this is just chaos. But it's on its own terms, it's perfectly simple and coherent. It's one. On our terms, it's chaotic nightmare. We can't make going
at the individual level, because part of it's like I think what's also telling about the film is that it focuses on a single family. Because even the characters that our main cast interacts with are other versions of the same people in different stages of their life.
Well, this is a thing. When your tension fractures enough, you're not the same person every time. Right. I mean, really, everything becomes broken up to the point where you can't make your experience coherent at all. There's no continuity. Everything has been differentiated to such a hyper degree that there's no continuity. There's no way of organizing the infinite number of facts and the way that the facts relate to each other.
I remember, like, I don't know if someone said this one time. I was like, people feel like different people. Like, there's the work self. Oh no, Severance. I don't know if you've watched Severance.
Only a couple of.
So we should totally do another podcast on this because I love Severance.
We'll have to sit down and stream it because you're going to be hard pressed to get me to actually.
I'm surprised. I would have thought you'd like it.
I know. I've heard that it gets better as time goes on.
It does.
Like the first few episodes is like, I get it. Your work life isn't like your. I was like, this isn't that deep.
It gets deeper.
This is what I've heard.
But the idea is that there's an innie and an outie in the work. Like, there's a work you and a like every other life you. But the thing is that elaborates in the story. A little bit of spoiler, but there's a reason why the main character wants to forget his normal life. There's a tragedy involved, and he doesn't want to contend with that tragedy. So he uses the separation to mask over that. And so it's like, but even though the specifics, I think a lot of people in this modern world, like you work an office job or whatever, you end up feeling like you live a fractured personality, right?
Which is, that's exactly right, by the way, because the moment you repress something, then there's a feature of you that's not integrated into a common whole.
Mm-hmm.
You split.
It's ironic, actually. Doing this podcast is a way of recombining the fragments of.
That's what everything everywhere all at once is all about. It's how to deal with the increasingly fractured tension space that's a consequence of base materialism.
Yeah, like integrating all your interests into one bucket, whatever that means.
How do you integrate everything?
Yeah.
And really it's having to deal with even further back the death of God. Because if the death of God for our civilization, if God was for our civilization, the highest order purpose under which all information was organized, rendered relevant or irrelevant, including and determined our actions in the face of all this information, then its loss results in the slow dissolution of those distinctions, period.
Right. You just slowly.
Until you get to a place where there are no distinctions. And that non-distinct psychological demeanor as a whole.
I feel like the only, maybe logical sounds like, it seems silly to use in this term, but all that leads to me at a cultural level is that we need to rediscover what God is. I'm not saying it necessarily needs to be like the Christian God, whatever that means. I'm just saying we need to come back, circle all the way back and read the thing we pretended like we killed it.
Yeah, and we shall not cease from exploration. The end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Yes, Elliot. Know the place, arrive where we started and know the place for the first time.
I guess that's like
not return to where we started.
No.
Arrive to where we started.
Yeah, I guess that's Lord of the Rings in a nutshell. I know. I'm saying like that's the message of Lord of the Rings. Like, they go away on this grand adventure, and then Frodo comes back, and then he's like, "Oh, well,
sure.
Yeah." And then he has to leave because he's so different. Yeah, it's the tragedy.
But it's part of.
But
yeah, they're so close to getting to God. Like
they don't go quite there in the story.
They're so close.
They leave it at the family unit in this story.
They get that it's love.
Yes, like unconditional love. Like, and that love. Where did I read this? I think it's something that I wrote, but it was like that love isn't just like this fairy tale romanticism. It's love as an active choice. And I think that's why I think I enjoy Waymond as a character so much, is that on his surface, he seems like the kind of guy that he might be the butt of the joke. He's goofy. He's silly. He doesn't take life seriously. But I think that's kind of the point. Like, he's the balancing act to Evelyn's seriousness and stuff. He's trying to get her to be like, hey, be with me in the moment. And it's like, it's not about the fact that we own a laundromat and it's not the best life ever. Like, we're not famous. We're not rich. We're none of these things that you'd think the materialist world says you should aim for. But we have something that the materialist world can't put a price tag on. No matter how many zeros you have in a bank account, we have something that you can't. It's ineffable. It's intangible. It's a choice that we made together. We chose to have this life.
Yeah. It's what being in love really means. I really got this when I read Mircea Eliade's The Forge and the Crucible. It's about the development of alchemy. It's really interesting, but he's talking about how it really emerges out of the Forge. It's a philosophy and a theology that emerges out of forging things, artificing tools, and that you actually are participating in the initial construction of like thunder gods when they build the world. And that just as there's a pattern that built the world, you aren't even exactly imitating them. It's that there's an identity that is the God you fall under, and you participate in the God's identity. So you're in love. That love is
It's like a vessel.
it's something, it's not a vessel exactly. It's built an aspiration. In aspiring to it, it forms you.
It's like, what I mean by vessel is like, it's something that you actively participate in, but by participating, it shapes you to be something different. You can't know it until you've participated. It sounds like a weird Eastern mysticism type thing. That's why I guess it's alchemical in nature too, is like you can't know it until you're in it, but you don't know it until you're in it.
Yeah. And it's just a
Yes, you have to participate to be. It's like people who talk about being a parent and you don't really get it until you're like, as someone who's not a parent.
Yeah.
I'm saying that as someone who doesn't know what they don't know.
You can't theorize about it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, but that's not going to get you.
No.
It's not going to take you
It's
all
like
the way
pretending
there.
like what it's like to be married.
Play, man is most nearly himself when he achieves the seriousness of a child at play.
I guess that's Wayman in a nutshell.
The idea is that play isn't messing around. It isn't arbitrary. It's that you're entering, it's the beginning stages of participating in a way of being. You're coming to understand it in a controlled environment. You're reducing the complexity of the phenomena
so that you can aim at the
still
purpose.
Participating in it so you can get an understanding of what it is. This is what like D&D really is if you're doing it right, because you're role playing.
Right.
You're entering into an identity. You're testing out an identity.
Oh, wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And this is such a fascinating point for the idea of participation, because think about a dance. Okay, like let's do waltz. So it's two people.
Yeah, specific.
Right, so you have a bunch of different things going on there. You have the person A, person B. You have the music.
Yeah, specific.
Okay, where's the?
It's in the interplay between all those things.
It's all,
you can't just pick, and it's all of it.
Even more so, it's that when all of them come together, the waltz as an identity or as a pattern, it merges out of the relationship that all these things establish with one another. And then it resonates out. And so you have, I think it was Christ, I don't remember what the verse is, but it's like, wherever two or more of you gather in my name, I'll be there. Okay, right? So the identity emerges out. And you have a logos, like God is the word, logos is the word. And that you have a dialogue, a dialogos.
Right.
And that when two people are aiming at something like the truth or something, then the logos emerges out of the conversation. It's a pattern that can only exist when everything is brought into relationship with one. Identity, in this case, love, isn't a feeling. It's not a feeling. It's the feeling is a part of it. But it's all the way that we choose to interact in aspiring to love, and that when all the parts come together, you watch the love in real time emerge.
Yeah. Well, you see this throughout the entire story is like they're totally disconnected and barely, hanging on for everything that it's worth. And there's still like that little hope, right? And I think that's the important aspect of this too, is that there's always that little bit that it's not that you're hanging on to it, but it's that you could rekindle it. Right? Like there's always that little smolder in it. Even when it's so chaotic and you don't know which way to turn, is that you still have that other person that they got your back. And I think throughout the whole story, you see this little flicker that Evelyn remembers why she chose to take the leap of faith with Wayman that she did. And then by the end of the story is they finally come together and have that real moment together and say, oh yeah, that's right. In spite of everything, all the chaos, the dead ends, we still got to live the life that we wanted together. Because in all the other multiverses, they never actually got married. And so even she's the quote unquote failure universe, she's the only one that got to live the life of love.
Okay, so you can. There are multiple things that are going on with this final kind of reconciliation seed. That you have the call of the void, which is literally death if you take that decomposition far enough.
Right? You compose into nothing skeletons.
You fall into psychologically a billion different universes where you're fractured. But you can take that to a point where you decompose more. You literally, your whole body fractures into dust.
Yeah.
Right. That's what dust represents. Ashes to ashes,
Atomized
dust to dust.
to the modern version.
You have ashes to ashes, ashes up, fire. So spirit, dust
To dust.
earth. Right. They're both decompositions.
In different ways.
Right. That's what that means, is that you're fractured all the way down to the level of dust or ashes, and your spirit ascends.
One is an ascension, one is a descension.
Yeah, right. So even the high and the low are become disconnected.
Oh, that's
ultimately
fascinating. I just thought I connected a dot in randomly Marvel when Thanos does it, I think, rightly, to make people turn into dust and float away.
Yeah.
When he did the snap, because it wasn't an ascension, it was
a descent.
It was descension. It was like just choosing arbitrarily to get rid of people willy nilly. It wasn't in service of a greater purpose.
Yeah.
It was service because utilitarian. But it wasn't because it meant something. It was just that this was what we needed to do.
Yeah, it was a kind of materialist engineering.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The architect looking down and above and saying, it doesn't matter. All life is equal. It doesn't matter which ones you get rid of.
It's a call to the void, which at its deepest, most fundamental level is a literal decomposition of the body and the dissolution of spirit. But you also have it symbolic. This is as a letting go. This is why the Ouroboros is another one, because of it's this in distinction. This one is it's good and bad. Right. So if you ask if the snake in the Bible is good or evil, it depends on what you're doing.
Right.
Depends on the purpose. In Genesis, it's kind of a devil. But you have it's a devil because it actually, through hubris, results in a fall.
Right. Yeah. It was
right? So
the original sin.
The dissolution of the society, culture, everything, whatever, that disillusionment. It's the return to the Ouroboros is just death. Right. So it says you'll fall and you'll work and then you'll die and you'll return in the ashes to ashes. And so it's a downward, purely downward descent, and that's where it ends. But you have in Exodus, you have all these people getting bit by snakes, and then they're like, Moses, cure us. Tell God to cure us. And he's like, I'll pray about it. And God's like, no, I'm not going to just cure your problems. But here's what you can do. You can take a snake and you can put it up on a rod. And it's sometimes it's painted as a cross, and you see the snake around the cross.
Oh, the original cross, like the serpent, like the doctor.
Yeah, that's what's setting from ground.
It sounds like Quetzalcoatl.
It's the same symbol, but as the snake ascending up the cross, what it's saying is it's the oneness subordinated to the reconstitution of a higher purpose. So if you're
breaking,
you have a bunch of faulty assumptions, and they look true as axioms, and then you build a whole system of thought and psychology on top of those axioms, but then you get it to as far as you can take it, and then everything starts breaking. And you're like, oh shit, and you're miserable, and you're trying to hold on to all the facts, and you can't, which is what Joy is doing.
I was gonna say, that's what the movie shows you at its climax.
So the good of the Ouroboros is the decay, the actual death of all those structures right up to the axioms. And what you find instead is where you went wrong. Which of the assumptions you had were false.
So that you can course correct.
Right. Really washes away everything down to the base till everything is one again. Then you can rebuild on having learned the faulty assumption that you were. And so the snake in that sense is a cure. And so if they look on the staff with the stake around it for Moses, they'll be cured of the poison. That's the story. You can fix it by returning to a oneness.
Also, it sounds like the story is trying to do is, I think there's an element to the story that you could play this out, that all of it happened within a dialogue between, like, it's just a stylized dialogue between a family going through a bunch of interpersonal struggles, trying to contend with the mom is trying to contend with her own upbringing with her overbearing father, who's still overbearing and judgmental, and then a immigrant mother who's trying to deal with her daughter who's grew up in a whole different world and is trying to find her own place, and she's looking for reconciliation with her mother, while her father is a kind of hope and playfulness.
Notice all the separations.
Right.
It's daughter in a new world with new social mores and all this.
Everything
separated from her mom. The mom separated the father, the divorce. Right. Everyone is fracturing.
Right.
Just everything is fracturing and breaking down. And then it's a question of what reunifies.
Right. What's the reconciliation that allows you to not pave over those cracks, but allow for the cracks to in some sense heal of their own accord, like a reunification, so that each of you feels like they're seen or respected with their own struggles and where they to be seen. I guess I hate saying to be seen as they are, because it's such a like bubblegummy version of what we say to the, but it's so that we all feel like we, within the unit of the family, everyone feels whole to be represented as they feel, whatever that means, right? To be husband and wife, to be, the family as one unit, right? It's all operating at the same plane.
The love
Right.
that does the unification. But the important part that they don't make explicit
love
is that it's the love. It's not you or I that are. It wouldn't be me fixing myself, holding myself all together.
No, it's love that is the vehicle which allows that to even occur.
The ego, which is the thing that's grasping all the concepts and holding on to things and all this, is the very thing that needs to be let go of. It's the holding on to, like protecting myself, clinging to things, right, instead of letting go.
Right. And I think I just reminded me. So that's what you about the letting go of things, the structures that be to disillusion.
To allow them to die,
right,
so that you can fall into a oneness, rediscover the thing that held you together in the first place, and reorganize yourself in the world.
And the vehicle in the movie is that part of like Joy or Evelyn to tap into the other possible selves is she has to do something silly, right? Like eating, like blowing up guys' nose.
Stop holding on to it.
Right. It's because she's like white knuckling life so hard that she can't even be silly. Right. And then eventually her Joy and Wayman, they're both, Evelyn, do this, like it'll make him laugh or whatever. And then she starts to listen instead of being like, you're goofy, whatever, stop it. Like to grow up a little bit. So she starts to believe it, and she's entering into play. And by the end of the movie, she is embracing it.
Yeah.
She's able to let go of the preconceived notions about what her life should have been. If only, having those regrets of life, like, oh, if only I'd done X or done Y, it would have been better.
Yeah. Stop clinging to your ideas. Let go and be here with me.
That's what the story is. But both her husband and her daughter are saying, here, right now.
And then, of course, when she starts to get it, she gets the little googly eye.
I know, the googly eye in the middle.
Right. As a third eye. So she sees it all. And that's like, I really think that this whole thing, that's the good version of the Ouroboros, the one that leads you to ascend. If you just worship the decomposition into a common oneness, you'll regress into infantile barbarity that can't sustain civilization, because civilization is dependent on the distinction between many things. Right.
Things in their place where they should be.
Yeah. That's necessary. So you can't stay there, but you can go through that phase in order to be baptized and born again. It's Apsu and Tiamat and all that.
It's one of the things I think is sorely lacking, because I think those coming of age things are miniature versions that past societies did so that people could transition to get that sort of who am I becoming or what am I becoming, so that they could re-enter society and have like kind of blow off that steam, speak, so they can re-enter society as a productive person and say, look, I've done it, figured out the way of being in this society.
It's the death of rest.
Mm.
That It's in another phrase, it's the death of the Sabbath.
Mm.
So there's symbolism with 6 and 7, where 6 is the idea of a complete set.
We're about to get so many fucking memes of 6, 7.
Yeah.
That's why I said, oh no.
Where 6 is a complete set. So it's 6 days,
Oh,
and they're all days that you're working. So it's you peering down on the things you control and can manipulate and change. You're in control. On the 7th day, you have to let go.
of all the things.
And it's a complete set plus 1, whatever comes next.
Mm-hmm.
The known, the order, the light, right? Because you can see it and therefore manipulate it. And then the Sabbath is the dark. It's the quiet. It's the mystery.
Interesting.
It's everything that you can't control.
Yeah, we're definitely not that
It's
last
just
part.
letting go. But it's a tyranny. It's a tyranny. What we have in our culture is a tyranny of doing.
Yeah.
There's no being.
No, very.
There's no opportunity to fall into no thingness.
Yeah.
Everything, you have a clear task, everything is objectified. It's all rendered into an object to be manipulated or deemed relevant. That makes it, that's what it's making into a thing. Nothing isn't annihilation, nihil, nothing like the void. It's deconceptualization. That pattern of working light and then dark, letting go, mystery.
Right.
Has to be
There's a
repeated
cycle
over and over.
chasing.
A period of rest
Yeah.
is why in her reconciliation speech, Joy says she's exhausted. Yes, you are exhausted. You're holding on to everything. So you notice how it's like they're all trapped. It's like they're trapped in this doing mode where they're all fixating on all the myriad facts. They're trying to control everything and get a grip on all the infinite number of concepts, and they're not willing to let go. The way that they're able to let go is through confession. Is that Evelyn approaches her daughter and says, "You are getting fat. And you don't call me. And you don't do this. And you don't do this. And here's all the things that I'm frustrated with you about. And it sucks. And I hate it." There's the unwillingness. Like, she won't even let go of control over her own frustrations. And like over pride. She won't let go of perfection. She won't let go of the past. By confessing these things, she gives up control and then is able to ease back.
Because it's like when you white knuckle those things, they've mastered you. Feel like the more that it becomes like part of your identity.
But you think that you're in control, but the more you try to control things, the more control takes ownership. You can't break out of this prison.
You make it one brick at a time. Actually, you see this a lot in social media personalities, like people who are experts about really specific diets, carnivore people or whatever. Like they become, so they can never take in new information, whether or not that diet is the best or not. They're just always set on that point. And no matter what information they take in, they're like, nope, I'm this guy and I'll never be, they've just put all their chips on one thing.
Yeah.
So you see that a lot in these like online personas that get formed around really specific niches,
Yeah. That's another attempt to control even your image.
Right.
So Evelyn, both Joy and Evelyn have these confessions to each. So they let go of their attempts at controlling the world and holding on to all these concepts. And when they let go, they find love.
And bridge to their reconnection.
It's like super subtly Christian. Like there's a better example of this kind of what confession is in K-pop Demon Hunters. That's a better example of what confession is and how your attempts to even control your image.
I think we know the next move.
We're going to have to. Your attempts to control your image are actually getting in the way of a reconciliation. Right? It's
because she's afraid to show her tattoos and she won't even go to the bathroom.
And all the faults, the things that she even did wrong and all this. Mm-hmm. But you have the same thing here. It's like, I'm not perfect. I'm actually angry with you. And a lot of these things are stupid. And it doesn't make any sense. But who cares? It's what it is. Stop trying to make it what you think it should be.
And it doesn't mean that it's true or that you meant for me to feel it this way.
Yeah.
That's all I feel that way. And we could figure out how to get
it turns off. And
Right.
the other side of that, right?
Yeah.
Is unification.
Yeah.
Is you bringing together.
See, that's what I mean. This story, it feels like it's going to go one direction the whole way through. And then right at the very end, it's no.
Yeah.
It gives you the hopeful spin.
And it actually gives you the right answer too.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can have an arbitrary, oh yay, everything is happy at the end. It's just kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
But I think part of the reason why the film resonated is because in the way that it did, it had a very low budget, it had a very small marketing budget, and it made something like $100 million when all was said and done. And it didn't do that on an opening weekend. It did that over the course of months, that you had a slow rise of tension.
We were trying to get at in the beginning, where sometimes it takes time to contend with these and unpack them and like sit with it. Totally. The movie itself requires you to be with it, consume it, and move on to the next thing.
It didn't succeed because of a great marketing budget or $1 billion in techno nonsense.
Right. Flashy.
It succeeded because it was able to capture the feeling of the hyper-fractured era. Yes. Capture that feeling and then answer the question, what do you do about it?
Right.
And the answer is stop trying to control everything.
And it's okay to pick a handful of things, right? Like pick a significant other, pick one thing you want to focus on as your career.
I think the real answer to that, especially as things get more chaotic, is that those things are too low.
Mm.
It's the personifying force.
Mm.
It makes somebody it dissolves the concept you're projecting onto them. It blocks you from meeting them. And instead you see the person.
Right. Don't project onto them.
Right. Don't have an assumption about what they are. Don't objectify them. Turn them into a conceptual object that you can manipulate. Just be with them.
Mm.
Make them into a person. And that's what love is. That's what one of the things it does, is that it personifies people, makes them real.
And it allows you to see them as they, not as you think they are or want them to be.
And the reason I think that it's the highest, so it's like, why choose love over any other virtue, or even one of these other objectives that could also organize your perceptions in the world. So I could pick like a career that I really want, and that will organize everything.
There's like 80% of the.
It's that love has a place for the whole world.
Mm.
It can subordinate everything. It has a place for everything.
It's like as big as it will encompass as much as you allow for it to encompass.
It allows you to,
right?
That's right.
Like it's not one of those things that is finite in sense of like your work.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas something like love allows you, it grows in proportion to what you're willing to fill it up with. Like it's a vessel. Like
it's always there waiting for you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do the confusion in our culture. Our culture thinks that like loving yourself is expressing all your vices.
Mm.
It's something like indulging in all of the bad feelings that you have. It's not that.
I would call it the bubblegummy version of this love stuff.
It's wish fulfillment. It's decadent.
That's the woo-woo side of this love. Like
I'm perfect as I am, but you're not perfect as you are. You're a mess. Stop pretending like you're not a mess.
We're all a work in progress. Even if you fix a lot of things, you're still a mess at some.
And people want to solve their bad feelings about being a broken mess by denying that these things are ever a problem at all, and removing the distinction between good and bad. And so everything is made equal. And so then it's part of the bad side of the Ouroboros. I can pretend that all of my vices are actually virtues, that I'm actually good exactly as I am, by removing the distinction between good and evil together. But what love gives you instead is you come to love yourself by aspiring to love.
Right.
If you just see it.
This is why I love the idea of the Michelangelo effect.
Yeah.
I keep coming back to it.
Angel in the Marble.
Yeah, where basically you like in love, you become the best version for each other. It's not that you already are the best version for each other. It's that through time and elaboration, you eventually are molded by each other to become what each.
Yes. Which is dramatically different from what we talk about today as somebody being the one.
Totally.
where you're looking for the perfect fit. Like you're two frozen objects with a
Like
particular
2 puzzle pieces.
oh, this doesn't work out. I guess I'll move it on to the next one. You've objectified yourself and the other person. And then you're saying that you don't fit like cogs in a machine together.
Because it doesn't work that way. Not even a little bit. And that's part of the problem, like going back to the idea of the scarcity loop, right? It's that thing playing out within relationships. And you could play this game where you restart this molding process infinitum.
Yeah. Well, you wonder why you're cynical about dating?
Yeah.
Because you're doing it wrong.
You don't spend any time, because in the first 3 months, everyone goes through that Goldilocks period and you're like, wow, everything's new and novel, right? Kind of going back to what you're saying on building on what I said with the novelty thing, of course. But it's once the novelty wears away that you're able to actually truly start to drop those preconceptions about who you think that person is. And now you get to start to mold yourselves in a way that you're starting to take your lives and interweave them in a way that isn't just this like Disneyified romanticism. Seer than that. Like you can have those moments. It's not to say that there isn't romanticism, but nothing is a fairy tale in that sense.
And the way that you guys adapt to each other isn't by even focusing on the other person exactly. It's by looking at love through them. That you're trying to ascend to something that's above both of you. And if you're both trying to do that,
That's the higher order thing.
That thing will meld you guys together in the appropriate way. And you'll come to fit each other in a way that's healthy and sustainable and life-giving, to the point where in a literal sense, it becomes life-giving. You come together, become one, and a new life is born out.
Right, yeah.
This is why I think this movie's like really subtly Christian.
Very, because it feels like it's there.
It's
Now
getting
that you're
it.
saying,
And for reasons I still don't understand, but we'll eventually, hopefully, understand, is that God is love in Christianity. So that's partly this idea that God is the summum bonum, the highest value, and love is the highest value. So what we mean by
is God like an embodiment of like the super order of love, like taken to its extreme, like as applied to all of humanity, something like that. I don't know.
And it's
as
tough.
an engineer, I don't know what.
It's that both as love and the summum bonum, or love and being a summum bonum and God being a summum bonum, and they're both happen to be that highest value. In that sense, I can understand that God is love, that they're just two different names of the same thing. But I'm like, God is also like the sum total of reality,
Right,
in which we're all participating.
Where that
there
might be a differentiation.
It's after a couple of years. No, I was thinking about it.
Yeah. And so well, I think we nailed this one. This was a fun one. I knew this would be fun because it's one of those.
Can I see if I can summarize it?
Go for it.
It's something like one person struggles with all of the possible purposes in the face of a exceedingly complex and fractured experience, and then finds that the highest organizing principle for her life, highest purpose for her life that organizes all of that chaos is love.
Nailed it.
Cool. And hold the Ouroboros at bay.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. I think,
prevents death.
like we were saying, I think part of the reason why I was excited when you said we should do this one is that the movie came out in 2022, so it's a couple years old now, but I think it's even more relevant, ironically more relevant now than it was then, just because of how ratcheted up all the chaos was. And even COVID was chaotic when this movie came out. I think in one sense is that it gives us, I think, a subtle blueprint in which that we can try to anchor ourselves instead of spinning out, where you're just like, I need to do more. I hear a whole bunch of young people always say like, oh, I don't have enough time to do these things, like whatever it is, I wish I was doing more with my time, or
kind of like why
whatever, right?
I don't.
Well, part of it to me is that if you really believe in the magic of some, like if you feel like you have a purpose in some sense, or if there's something that's worth your time doing, in some sense, you have to just, whatever time it will take, and that the world doesn't care. Like it might feel like, oh, I need to do this thing, but it really doesn't matter. What matters is that you feel like you've done what you could do with what you had, with where you are. And that's a quote from someone I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's a good one.
Seems like a cool guy.
But it's one of those ones that I always think of, like, you can't wish that you were further along than where you were, because it's kind of the story of all of our trajectories, is that you're always going to wish you knew now what you didn't know back then. but it took you back then taking those clumsy first steps to get where you are now. So you just kind of have to appreciate wherever you are now and rallying against the past and say, I wish I would have started sooner. I think we're always going to feel that way to some degree. It's just the trajectory of growth. And I guess the hope is that, of course, you should feel that way. Because if you feel like you've gone backwards and stagnating, where you're like, oh, man, I was better then than I am now. Well, maybe you should really. Right, where you can have the space to just curl up. Mhm. Yeah, especially in a world that everything is viewed mechanized and materialistic. It feels so counterintuitive because if you're not moving forward, whatever that means, then you're going backward.
More
Production.
matter, more quantity.
Yeah, there's no
Quality's dead.
there's no
now.
quality to any of this stuff. As you're trying to get at is this idea that love is something about the quality of being.
Non-distinction doesn't afford quality.
Right.
There's
Oh, yeah.
something about it, something unique about that thing. But if it's all just substance, it's all just matter.
Yeah,
And you're just a clump of matter.
more is just better than by that
and a
measure.
baby's just a clump of cells, and you can just take a person apart and put them back together like Frankenstein, or all this weird shit that's happening with. You could take a uterus out of one person and sell it to a trans person in India, where the fuck, and all this meat Lego Gnosticism is happening. There's no quality.
Yeah,
It's all the same thing.
flattens it all. Super weird.
It is. At least we figured out the answer.
At least, well, yeah. Now,
No.
at least the maybe a first attempt, because this is like the newest movie that kind of feels different. I guess is it's a step function away from the feelings of trying to make sense of the feelings that we have in our current moment.
I think it was the end of postmodernism.
Yeah, I think you could.
I think it was. Like, Rick and Morty has changed. I'm not saying that it's the cause of the end of postmodernism, but it's sort of like any border. It's kind of arbitrarily placed. It's just saying that this is a clear sign of the end of postmodernism.
Mm-hmm.
Because if postmodernism is a disconnection from all reality and a kind of infinite fracturing of all meanings down to nothingness in this weird way, and that finally a meaning emerges that's coherent.
Yeah. It's like the antidote to it all.
It's kind of worldly.
There's not much more else to elaborate from that, right?
Postmodernism is dead.
Good riddance.
Good riddance. And also kind of good.
Yeah. Well, on to the next one. If you're listening, you probably catch on which one we're going to be doing next.